Hello everyone, I'm Rosephere, and in this video I want to talk about World of Warcraft and what killed the open world, because it seems to be that there's a rather large misunderstanding that flying is what ended up killing the open world, and that couldn't be further from the truth in that flying is just a very small part of what actually ended up killing the open world. So, the first thing that really contributed to killing the open world is something that happened all the way back in Classic, and we have a perfect example of that now because of Classic World of Warcraft being playable and seeing the progression of the phases phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, in the first couple phases, the open world was probably the most vibrant it was ever going to be. And phase two was so toxic, it was horrible. Like a lot of people quit the game because of phase two, and that was because of the implementation of the honor system. Before that, the open world was just a very vibrant place. There was people everywhere PvPing, mostly for fun. Some people doing it just to be a dick, but that's besides the point. The open world was vibrant and full of life, and people were everywhere. The first death blow to the open world in World of Warcraft and MMOs in general is Burning Crusade, Battlegrounds. The first death blow to the open world is Battlegrounds, and you can see that in Classic World of Warcraft the day that Blizzard flipped the switch and turned Battlegrounds on, the open world died compared to what it was at the very least. It basically emptied the entire world to the cities. So it focused all of people that were PvPing to the cities, and people stopped going places to actually do things. And just sat in cities to queue for BGs so that they could farm honor better and faster. And even if the honor system wasn't in the game the way it is in Classic, people still just sit in cities and queue for BGs. And we know this because of current expansion and just every expansion in the game ever. People just sit in cities and queue for things, especially if you give them the option to. They're not going to run through the world and look for people to play with. They're just going to sit in a city and queue for it. So, Battlegrounds, the number one thing that killed open world in World of Warcraft and just MMOs in general, is organized battlegrounds that you can queue for from a city or from wherever you currently are. So, battlegrounds, number one thing. A lot of people don't want to hear that because they love battlegrounds, and honestly, I'm one of them. Battlegrounds are fun, but they're a large part in why the open world is dead. And that's kind of why I'm running around the world right now, to just kind of illustrate that there's nobody out here doing anything other than maybe a couple bots farming herbs and random people doing what's that called? World Quest. I just ran over one. Random people doing world quests here and there. There's really not a lot of people out here doing anything because there's no reason for people to be out here. That's another reason why the open world's dead, is because there's just nothing to do. It doesn't matter if you have flying or not. So, the number two thing that killed open world would actually be flying. And we can see that in Burning Crusade because people use that to, especially druids, to avoid PvP and farm uh, herbs and minerals and things like that for blacksmithing. So we see people using flying to avoid PvP. You can jump from A to B, or you can jump from A to D without going through the steps of C and D, or sorry, yeah, uh, B and C. So I can't remember my alphabet. A, B, C, D. So assuming you're at point A and you want to get to point D, right? If you're flying, you can skip points B and C because you can just fly over them. You don't have to run through this heavily contested area. You don't have to go through, another like dense area of mobs and things like that to get to where you want to go, to get to a dungeon that you need to be at, to get to your raid, any of that. You just fly to the point that you need to be at. So you get to skip everything in between, and that's a big problem. So that empties out the world because you can skip those steps, and very few people are going to be like, well, I kind of want to go through those extra steps just to get to the point where I can play with my friends. Nobody's going to do that. So people aren't going to be running around. As soon as you give them the option, they're going to take off and start flying and go from A to D and skip the steps in the middle. Flight points, they do a similar thing where you can skip a lot of the steps in the middle something that honestly could make Classic more fun. It would piss a lot of people off, but in the end, removing convenience forces players to work together, and that creates community. And that's something that's really important for MMOs, and something that I think that I'm really looking forward to in MMOs like Ashes of Creation, because they're not adding in a lot of those convenience aspects to the game to make it easier to play, to make it more convenient. It's like the travel time is important because you meet people along the way. Uh, those steps in the middle are very important steps to building community, and that's something that honestly I think that Blizzard should try to add back to World of Warcraft, but I think it's too late at this point. The community would never accept it. So, uh, phasing is the next thing on the list of things that killed the open world, and it started in Wrath of the Lich King. You don't see it as much today. It's not as bad as it was, but when I remember playing Wrath of the Lich King when that first came out and having finished most of the quests in a zone, and a friend of mine like, "Hey, there's this group quest. I need help. Can you come help me with it?" Or they'll be leveling alt. It's like, "I need help with this quest. Can you come help me with this quest?" It's like, "Oh yeah, let me get over there." And they invite me to the group. I fly over. I see their dot on the map. I'm right on top of them, but I can't see them because they're in a different phase. They haven't completed that quest yet. So it's like, sorry, bro, you're on your own. You got to find somebody else. Uh, that's not a good feeling, and that is a large part of what killed the open world, because Blizzard then had to make the content much easier and more accessible for individuals to play on their own. They kind of pigeonholed themselves into making single player content because they created a situation in that single player content that was completable by one person from level 1 all the way to cap was required, because you couldn't always ask for help. You can do it now more because there's not very many situations where you're at a quest that you have to do on your own, or that's phased out but you need a group to do. Like, that just doesn't exist anymore. And that's pretty much why Blizzard doesn't put group quests in the game anymore, because if it's phased from other people, it can be really frustrating to get to a point where it's like, "Hey, friends, can you come help me?" "No, we can't, because we already did that quest and that part of the world doesn't exist for us anymore." So it's not a good feeling. That is a large part about what killed the open world, or a large thing at what killed the open world, I should say. So the world not being scary is another thing that really killed killed the open world in World of Warcraft, and it does that in all MMOs. So if the world isn't scary, you don't need help. You never need to ask for help. You never need people to come to your aid to do a quest, to do a world quest, to do anything like that. Like, the only thing that I would say that might be quote unquote scary is a world boss in World of Warcraft. So the reason why that's not scary is because I can run up to the world boss, instantly hit the boss a couple times. There's 80 other people doing it, and I get my loot or whatever without even having to go up to the boss to loot it. Like, I don't have to do anything. I just walk up, put a couple dots on it, go AFK, go to the bathroom, come back. Oh, look, I got my stuff, and then leave. Like, I never have to interact with anybody because it's so solo friendly, and that's not a good thing. That's not something that we want to foster in MMOs, because it will strangle the game, and it's very clearly doing that in World of Warcraft. There are other games that have content that is really difficult where the open world is actually kind of scary. A good example of that currently is Final Fantasy XIV. And the open world in that game, for the most part, is not scary, but there's a lot of things in that game that require you to be with a large group of people, organized group of people, to do it. Because if you're not, the group's going to just get destroyed and wiped. And it's not like a high level of organization that's required to do this open world content in 14. It's a minimal level of organization. You don't necessarily need to be on, Discord talking with each other, but you need people that are all focused on doing the same thing and not just running up and putting up a couple of dots to get their tag in. Which is where World of Warcraft is currently. It's basically, and something that a lot of people probably won't want to hear, it is the most casual MMO on the market. And when like, people are like, "Oh, but there's all these crazy grinds and things like that," and it's like, I don't want to have to do all this on my alts. It's like, it is the most casual friendly MMO on the market, not because there's significant grinds in the game, because you can do everything on your own. You don't need a group ever because the world's not scary. And because the world's not scary, I never need to interact with anybody. I can play the whole game without ever saying a word. And it like part of that right here, my chat box is empty. Like that has general chat in it. It has /1 2 3 4, all of those things in it. Nobody's saying anything because they don't need to. There's no reason to talk with each other. So yeah, that's another thing that really killed the open world. And the final death blow, the thing that killed the open world the most, is Group Finder. And that killed the open world because people just, like, you can sit in a city, push a button, get put in a group with people you're never going to see again, finish the dungeon, and then leave. You got all the stuff you needed, and then you can just sit in a city and do it again. You never have to say a word to anybody to play this game, and that's not a good thing. I remember when I was younger, I had pretty bad anxiety growing up, to the point where it was difficult for me to talk to people, and World of Warcraft helped bring me out of that with a sort of exposure therapy without even knowing it. Looking back on it now, it was really important to me growing up that World of Warcraft was the way it was in Burning Crusade, because I had to talk to people, and even in Wrath of the Lich King, to an extent, even after the Dungeon Finder had come out, you still had to talk to people to do things. Um, it was really important to me and me growing up to have that experience, because if not, I don't know where I would be now. I wouldn't be able. I don't know. I could have just regressed and gone even further into my anxiety, instead of being forced to come out so that I could play this game with other people. Um, and being able to just sit in a city and queue for a dungeon, um, it really hurts the open world. And because of that, you don't have people going out to dungeons and things like that. And it's like, well, you'll probably say that, oh, well, you have to look for people for Mythic Plus. It's like, how many people are talking and looking for Mythic Plus and not just using a custom group finder advertising keys, right? Like, the, you it's the same thing. It's just not an automated system. It's literally the same thing. You need to get rid of those systems, reduce the convenience within the game. I know people would be like, people want those systems. They want the convenience. They want to be able to get in and out of the game. But that's not the point of an MMO. An MMO is like, it's meant to take time. It's meant for you to sink hours into. It's meant to be inconvenient because the inconvenience creates community, right? Like, because you have this common enemy of the game being inconvenient, even though it's a lot of fun, it forces people to play together. And that's really important. And World of Warcraft doesn't have that anymore. Most MMOs don't have that anymore. From the start, they come with the convenience. And again, like I said, that's one of the reasons why I'm really looking forward to games like Ashes of Creation. And assuming it ever comes out, which it probably won't, but I keep my fingers crossed hoping for it. Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen. Hoping for those two games. I've backed Ashes of Creation. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Those devs seem like they really care about the community and creating the community around the game. So, yeah. Yeah, with all that being said, those are the reasons why open world doesn't exist. It's not because of flying. It's because of a combination of factors that slowly slaughtered the game. Or, I should say, slaughtered the open world, and there's no reason for it to even exist anymore. Like, there's almost no reason for them to design these zones. Just give us a city and let us queue for shit. Like, that's basically where we're at this point. It's just it's a mini game simulator. So, yeah, with all that being said, thank you all for watching. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and I will see you in the next one.